What's going on, Lions fans? Welcome to the Pride of Detroit YouTube channel. My name is Miko, joined once again by my guy, Morgan Cannon, and this is your go-to place for all things Lions related. That includes news, updates, analysis, and so much more. We are back with another training camp recap. Today was day 5, Morgan, the first day in pads. A day that it definitely felt like, when you look at like the previous 2 practices, like it felt like guys were getting a little antsy and really getting into that mindset of starting to ramp with the physicality. So in today's video, we're going to, definitely go through some of the biggest storylines to come out of today's practice. Aidan Hutchinson had a good day. We're also going to have a couple injury updates as well as highlight a couple other players that maybe we haven't gotten to talk about a ton in terms of them starting to kind of make some splashes once the pads went on. But like always, if you guys are looking for any more additional training camp insight, if this video doesn't do it for you and you're like, man, I need a little bit more, I need to understand exactly what happened with this player or that player, first place you can always go is the prideofdetroit.com website. Eric has a brand new observation article up that you can read perfectly for free and get a good idea of some of the things that happened at practice today. But if you need something a little bit more, if you really want, that firsthand account, I highly suggest that you guys check out Pride of Detroit Direct. That is linked in our description. That is a paid subscription that you pay $50 for the entire year, basically just under $5 a month, for you to be able to get video content that is very exclusive to those subscribers. And part of that video package, you will get a video where Jeremy and Eric recap training camp as soon as it ends. Like they go to practice, they do the media scrums, and from there, they're in the Reisman recording room where they're breaking down all of their notes and all of the touch points that have basically occurred over at practice. And trust me, Morgan and I watch it even just to help us get familiar with what happened at practice, because we can't go to all of the training camp practices, and it's a huge asset. So if you really want that additional insight, I highly suggest you check that out in the link in the description as well. But Morgan, with all that said, this was the day that I think even Dan said it, in his presser. This is the day where you start to find out who's who and who's really has the build and the mindset and the character makeup to be a Detroit Lion as the season kind of gets closer.
Yeah, and it's a tale as old as time. Coaches hyping up hitting, getting them pads on and being able to hit. It's been that way forever. They got this nice ramp up period now. It's going to make me sound like a dinosaur. Not that I played in the NFL or anything, but I feel like we were in pads, boom, right away. But yeah, to your point, Miko, they needed to be in pads because they had been trying to act like they were in pads at times the last couple of days, getting a little too physical. Dan Campbell having to reel things in and, calm things down. But yeah, this was exciting and good to hear that, they were competitive today and walked away unscathed finally. And we had been asking for that.
I was going to say, we just asked about that in the video that we did yesterday. So yeah, to that point, first practice so far of this training camp where no one was injured. There was still some injury news. And honestly, it's more so on the positive side. Both Derek Barnes and Terrion Arnold both returned to practice today, which is great news considering that both of them left yesterday. Not that it was like, something that was being speculated to be terrible, but it was just something that people noticed that like, hey, at one point in time they were on the field. Next thing you know, they weren't. Terrion had initially been, said to be dealing with a leg injury, which some were saying was a calf strain. Dan quickly kind of just like brushed that off in his press conference where he was just like, no, he'll be out there. And Terrion was in fact out there. I mean, he had a really good rep apparently against JMO, got a good hit on him. And I think that kind of probably calmed everyone down in regards to like, oh, okay, he really is fine. Like this isn't just him playing through an injury. Again, no real understanding. We're not doctors on probably what happened, but the fact that he was able to bounce back so quickly at least lets us know it was not nearly as serious as people thought, the day before. And then Derek Barnes is in a similar situation where it turns out, from what I've heard, I think what Eric and Jeremy kind of broke down in their breakdown, he had a dislocated pinky and they basically couldn't get it reset at practice. So he ended up having to go to the hospital just to have them reset it there. But again, was back at practice doing his thing. No big notes from Derek Barnes in regards to like any plays or anything, but Morgan, still like a good sign to have both of those players back at practice the next day and not seemingly having any long-term issues, right?
Yeah, and it kind of goes back to our little spiel that we did in our video the other day about just wait and see, man, especially at this time of year, right? Just because they're going to be careful. And then it ended up Terrion was fine and he's out here popping people and individual drills. So yeah, it just goes to show just wait and see for now. Just we're in that season while it's still July. Like someone said in Slack, I want to say it was Brandon Knapp. He's like, I'll start taking stuff seriously like late August, early September. I'm like, there you go. Like, because then
Let's say That's the way to approach it, because then
Yeah.
anything that happens at that time period probably impacts your actual season.
There you go, because you're only a week away, so it could impact things. Right now, they're just going to be careful because they got the Hall of Fame game down the street. Not down the street, it's
Mm-hmm.
in Canton. I'm in Detroit, but down, just in Ohio, and they're not, no one's sweating that because no starters are going to play in that we think. There
I was gonna say,
might be
yeah,
some caveats there, but no one that is leading jersey sales, let's say, is going to be out there for the Hall of Fame game. So keep that in mind. The joint practices, if you guys want to keep that in the back of your head, if you're watching this, the joint
mm-hmm.
practices will be key for the players who are going to make it, the impact during the regular season, because that's where Dan and this coaching staff likes to get the starters reps, because it's a little bit more of a controlled environment. They can set things up situationally, whatever they like, to really get those like reps in and make them count. Just to, you want to be healthy as you can for the regular season, but Campbell's also really big on, I think he's used the term like callousing the body and just getting used to taking those like hits depending on what position you play. So keep that in mind. It's all relative. We still got a little bit until regular season's play, but it's also going to get here quicker than we think, right?
Absolutely. I was gonna say these first 5 practices feel like they've like blown by, and I feel like
Yeah.
the rest of the offseason is going to be the exact same. Speaking of like, you talking about waiting until some more information comes out before fans start to overreact, I do think we have to reapply that message to Tyleik Williams today, because he was not at practice. So I'm sure people are going to hear that news and run to all different type of conclusions. Again, the only thing that we know, Morgan, from this standpoint, is that he did meet with the media yesterday, and when he was talking to the media yesterday, he did make a point to make them aware that, like, hey, he was 100% healthy, that he was a full go, that there were no any type of limiting factors. So we'll have to kind of wait until tomorrow when Dan talks to the media again to find out why Tyleik wasn't available. Again, it's training camp. You would love everybody to be there. Everyone is supposed to be there, but that doesn't mean that guys can't get excused from practice because of personal reasons or if things come up. So that's one that we'll kind of have to wait on.
Yeah, for sure. Like, you just got to wait and see. Like you talked about, told the media he was 100% healthy. Jeremy had even thrown the quote in there, but not to caveat from this and break off, but put it in Slack. It looks like the Lions, per Dave Burkett of the Detroit Free Press, have had conversations with Matthew Judon. So we're breaking news to you. We're breaking news to you mid video because we're like that.
See, imagine if you decided to skip this video today and you would have never gotten that news at the time that you got it. So that's exciting. That's going to be an interesting piece, because obviously the Lions fans have been clamoring for more edge help. Matthew Judon is one of those guys, veteran pass rusher, right? Definitely adept at getting to the quarterback, but definitely also, very serviceable in the run game as well, which is what the Lions ask of their edge players. So it's going to be interesting to see like if that develops into anything over the next few days.
Yeah, and if you're looking, like, trying to read the tea leaves, right? I love when Eric uses that statement, but Judon could be someone who could potentially get reps at that Sam position, that Sam linebacker position, potentially freeing up Derek Barnes to spend more time at the will, depending on how things shake out with Anzalone. So there's a lot of implications with, we'll see here. I'm not, it's from Dave Burkett, who is very trusted, definitely the most nationally plugged in beat writer here in Detroit. So it's just something to, while everyone's been thinking about Zadarius Smith, I don't think many had the Judon thing in their heads, right, Miko?
No, I don't think so, because like you said, like Matthew Judon is someone that does have that outside linebacker like flexibility. And so to your point, if you're looking at someone to maybe play some of that Sam role, that does make your linebacker room a lot more versatile. And it's a good place to pivot, because I was thinking about us talking about this later in the video, but it's a good place to talk about Zach Cunningham, because apparently pads came on and so did his play. Like, apparently he was all about it being just about everywhere on the field when it came down to stuffing the run. And he's someone that's been stepping in, getting a lot of reps with the first team because of Alex Anzalone, dealing with that hamstring injury. Morgan, like, that combined with this Matthew Judon news does kind of make me look at the Anzalone situation a little differently, in terms of whether or not the Lions are maybe prepping in the event that Alex isn't going to be a full go for the season, whether because of health reasons or just because like he's going to be, really adamant about getting a new deal done.
Yeah, there's a lot to read into it. And if you guys are familiar with the channel, we don't, and if you're not, we don't jump to conclusions here. We try to keep things in reality, but there's some stuff at play here. We've talked at length about how talented this roster is and how there are still a lot of really talented young players on cost-controlled rookie contracts, but that bill is coming due, right, Miko? So
yeah,
we've had that. We've talked about that. The Brian Branches, the Sam Laportas, the Jameson Williams, the Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm not going to say them all. There's too many. That's how awesome this roster is. Keep that in mind, folks. But yeah, you have to kind of have to read into it here. And Judon is someone who's pretty versatile and would give you some pass rushing juice and give you that definitely an edge setter still. So yeah, and as far as Zach Cunningham goes, if you're not familiar with Cunningham, folks, he was a first round pick, I want to say, right, Miko? I want to say, or like at least the day 2 pick. I can't remember off the top of my head, but he played really well in Houston for a bit. They changed schemes under D'Amico Ryans. Some stuff shook up. I'm just giving you the too long didn't read here, folks. And yeah, he's kind of bounced around, had some issues against the run in particular, just because, he's not the biggest guy, but he is a really fluid athlete, can cover well. So to your point, Miko, yeah, I could see, depending on how things shake out, he's someone, if he continues to show that he's a competent player in pads and can play inside the box and be, a contributor against the run, then there's no reason he can't get snaps at the will, right?
Absolutely. And like to your point, he was a second round draft pick back in 2017 by the Houston Texans. And yeah, like someone that, like you said, coming into Detroit did have that label on him, like maybe not the best against the run. But then you hear about today's practice, which was heavily run focused, and he's still the guy that's out there making plays and being heavily invested. And that's one of those things that, when it comes down to the NFL, like I'm always kind of weary when people are like, could Alex Anzalone be looking to just hold out, as a part of a contract dispute? Well, this is the danger of doing that in the NFL. And this is why I don't think he's like faking an injury or anything like that. Because like if dudes start to shine and dudes start to be considered reliable and they build trust with the coaching staff, well, that makes it that much harder for them to want to take that guy off the field. And so this isn't just like today either. It's not just because like they had pads on today and Zach Cunningham was starting to pop. Like he's been trending this way, the first 4 days of practice or the first 4 practices that they've had. And so now this kind of is like, oh, this also still translates once pads are put on it. This still translates once we're working on running game. And it's not just, like you said, Morgan, like pass coverage, like he's showing that he's growing and developing in his game. And yeah, it's another veteran body that you could potentially have in that room that already has a Jack Campbell who also had a really good day in practice, that has a Derek Barnes that also has some flexibility when it comes down to playing, honestly, all 3 linebacker positions. If Zach Cunningham can continue to have like a really stellar practice, and if the Lions do decide to bring in, a Matt Judon, and you have on top of that Malcolm looking like he might be back a little bit sooner than what people initially thought, this linebacker room all of a sudden becomes one of the better and deeper groups along that defense.
Yeah, Grant Stewart, throw him into the mix, who's looking really good. And yeah, and it combined all of that, like the depth with the fact, like I'm not really sure that they want to give somebody what he's looking for, because it sounds like from his verbiage, he's looking for top end money. And I don't know that they want to shell that out for 3 years just because they got dudes to pay. They got mouths to feed coming up as soon as next year. And to your other point, like with Cunningham, I love this because he was a baller. Like for a little bit, I want to say he led the league in tackles one year, like not that long ago.
2020.
Yeah. So like it's there. And if we're looking at a trend here, folks, linebackers come here under Kelvin Shepard, who was the linebackers coach, now is the defensive coordinator. I'm giving some credit to my dog. I love some Kelvin Shepard. The linebackers come here and they blossom. Malcolm Rodriguez, Jack Campbell, Derek Barnes looking, getting paid like a nice little deal, nice little second contract. And he was raw coming out of Purdue, folks. Raw.
Yes, he was.
Because he had switched from running back to linebacker. So he was really learning a lot. So yeah, something to keep in mind, because it looks like, we got another gem on the coaching staff in Kelvin Shepard. And I'm excited to see this room continue to develop. And to Jack Campbell, my last point, I don't want to throw around the all-pro sniffing, but he could at this point. Like he's so comfortable in this scheme. He's Shepard's disciple, if you will. All right. I'm just excited because I think this might be the year where he catapults his name into that Fred Warner, Greenlaw conversation.
Yeah. And if you haven't had a chance to check out Eric's article or check out the Pride of Detroit Direct video, there's reasons to be excited about Jack based off some of the reps that he had and who he was repping against. Really, really good things are happening with Jack Campbell. And it's not just, like you said, it's not just the fact that, his linebacker coach is now the defensive coordinator and he's just hyping him up. Like, Jack seems to have really started to put some things together. I think Dan even mentioned the same during his media availability this morning. So there's a lot of hype around number 46. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be great to see how that translates once we get into the new season with this new collection of talent as well as scheme on the defensive side. But one thing that will be like the same, or maybe the same isn't the right way to say it, better, is apparently Aidan Hutchinson. We haven't talked about Hutch much over the first 4 days of practice, and that's mainly because, like, hey, it's really hard to get overly excited or overly down on offensive or defensive line play because they don't get the chance to, like, actually go at each other at full speed. Today we got that. Today we got one-on-ones. Today we got some more, 11 on 11s where there's actual pads and there's actual contact. And by all accounts, Hutch was on a tear, right? Beat Panay in a one-on-one, got a sack on 11 on 11s. Like, everyone that you read or hear talk about Hutch from today's practice is saying pretty much the same thing, which is that he looks like he's back to form and that he's absolutely ready to go once the regular season kicks off.
Yeah, like whether it was Ahmed Hassanin or Dan Campbell or whoever talking about Hutchinson, like everyone's singing his praises, man, saying he's looking like crazier than last year, which I want to put out here now. If Hutchinson truly has taken a step since last year, because last year he was sniffing with all pro and defensive player of the year stuff. If he had kept that, even not even that pace, because that pace was kind of unsustainable, even like a level below, still all pro defensive player of the year caliber stuff. And if he has indeed taken a step, the Lions are going to be one of the last 4 teams playing this year. I promise you that. I will sit here and say that now, stamp it. Roast me in the chat if I'm wrong, but if he truly has done that and we get that Aidan Hutchinson for 19, 20 games, they're going to be one of the last 4 teams playing. I promise you that.
I was going to say, because you get a guy like that was doing what he was doing last year, and some people will throw out the caveat like, oh, it was against backup tackles or things like that.
Care.
But it wasn't not every week, like not every single week. And he still was going up against one of the better tackles in the NFL during practice as well. So, like, you see the growth in Hutch year after year. Like, I'm right there with you. If you see him playing at this level come the regular season, and he's able to sustain it, he's able to reach back in time and be that player, if not better than he was last year. And then on top of that, you give him an improved secondary, a more confident Terrion Arnold, a real feisty corner in the DJ Reed, eventually getting a Leem back in the middle of the season. Like, there's a lot to be excited about for this defense. And it's really just going to be important for this Lions team to just get off to a fast start, because I think if everything that everyone is saying about Hutch is true, like, this defense is going to probably pick up exactly where they were at last year, Morgan, when they first started that season off with him healthy.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you even hear, if y'all can hear my daughter, she's just as excited for the defense. The best safeties in football, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I'm so sure about that, because if you have a defensive player of the year caliber edge rusher with this defense, like we just talked about the linebackers, the secondary, that's going to be a top 5 unit, folks. And if the offense finds their footing at all, which I know they will, I'm very confident just because of the players they have. I trust Johnny Morton. I trust Dan Campbell at the end of the day. Yeah. So forgive us if we feel like we're drinking the Kool-Aid, man, but we are coming off of a 15-2 season in which the defense was utterly decimated by injuries, and they still made it happen and just kind of ran out of gas at the end of it. So forgive me if I'm too hyped, man, but I just look at what I know and what I see, and what I see is a team that could really be beating the crap out of people here come September, October. Go ahead, though.
And I'm not even going to say drinking the Kool-Aid, right? We're sipping on the Kool-Aid. It's a little stronger than it has been in years past, but we're still just sipping. No one's taking full shots to the head. Yeah, it's got a little bit more bite than it has in previous years because of the success that this team has had. But with that said, Morgan, Hutch isn't the only one that has shown some improvement, has shown some growth and getting better as a player. I thought it was really interesting and really like another good sign of when you start talking about this offensive line, to hear that both Christian Mahogany and Giovanni Manu are starting to really come into form. And these are 2 guys, one in Christian Mahogany that didn't get to have a training camp last year because he was dealing with an illness, who's really kind of settling in at left guard. And then Giovanni Manu, a guy that was raw last year and really struggled in a number of ways, and was honestly, in a way, you could almost say like learning to play the position at a high level for the first time last year. Both of these guys are getting a lot of praise, especially coming out of a day of out of a padded practice, for just really showing true growth and being able to anchor well, being able to get good push and things of that nature. How exciting is that when you look at both of those young guys?
I'm not trying to downplay Mahogany, but I almost just expect it, because from what we saw last year when we watched his tape, I was like, oh, this is a dude, especially if you give him an off season. Like, He already said he worked out with Panay, just stayed here in Michigan and just worked out with Panay. I was like, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
Cheap,
that's a good that's a
affordable.
good guy to
Yeah,
to latch onto.
yeah. Just do what he does. Just try to. So yeah, I almost expect it from Mahogany. I think he's a dog. I think he's going to flourish this year, and it's kind of going to be a coming out party. So, but with Manu, I'm over the moon, man, because if he can just continue, if he can look like a pro this year, like show that he belongs, like if he's active, that's
Mm-hmm.
still a really big win. Like if he's active on game days, that's a really big win for year two because he was raw with a capital R exclamation point last year. And to be expected. He played his college football in Canada. I'm not trying to be disrespectful if we have Canadian fans. I just didn't. You don't see that typically happen, right, Mika?
Well, I was gonna say, like, you're talking about a guy that, like, whether it's just Canadian football or even in American football, like, learning the
Started.
position for the first time, right? Like, I know Kelvin Shepard said this about Ahmed Hassanin, but like, this is, these are players that are learning the sport only a few years ago. Whereas most guys that make it to the NFL, they've been playing this sport since they were 7, 8 years old, and these guys are learning it in their late, teens, early 20s, and trying to get ready for the NFL. That's a big learning curve, right? You're going from just being able to understand the basic concepts of playing the position to understanding like the intricate details of being a premier left tackle, which is what you need to be at the NFL. Even if as a backup, like, you got to be able to go out there and be competent if your number is called. And so I'm right there with you in regards to, like, if we see, Manu get to a point where he's at least like a game day active type of player for this team, that's a huge like leap of growth for him as a player. And Mahogany, I came into this offseason expecting good things from him. I expected him to kind of be a front runner when it came down to one of those starting guard positions. So to hear that he's dominating early on, that his physicality is really being shown off, that's music to my ears. It's one less thing that this team has to worry about as they kind of get ready for the regular season.
Yeah, and he's athletic too. He played in that scheme at Boston College that we've talked about. Can pull, be a part of like the running game with Hank Fraley and like how he employs his pullers and when he's running gap scheme. So yeah, I'm very excited for Mahogany and right there with Manu. If he's your swing tackle this year, even at times, if he's pushing Dan
That's what
Skipper,
I'm saying.
that'd be a huge win too, man. So just good to hear that he's looking like he belongs. Like that's a very big, like almost like an exhale for me.
Yeah. And two other guys that I did want to touch on before we get out of here that again, you mentioned looking like they belong. Two rookies, Isaac Teslaw, Dominic Lovett, both having pretty good days at camp today. Isaac Teslaw really showing off his physicality, right? Had a one-on-one rep against Maurice Norris, really kind of just like utilized his strength, his length to be able to kind of get the better of Norris in that rep. And then I think it was also reported later in practice, just again, showing good hands, making a strong catch on the sideline over Avonte Maddox. Those are the types of things that you want to see. Again, it's going to be interesting to see how the Lions utilize their weapons when you already have an Amon-Ra St. Brown, a Jameson Williams, and a Tim Patrick, as well as a Khalif Raymond at your wide receiver positions. How much can Isaac Teslaw actually get on the field this year is going to be something worth watching. But it's nice to know that early in camp he's making splashes here and there and showcasing that size, right? I think that was one of the biggest things, that 6'4", over 200 pounds. Like, you want to be able to, not just be, a fast guy, but you also want to be able to be strong in the blocking game or again, strong at the point of attack when it comes down to catching the football. And then Dominic Lovett, again, 7th round pick, but also still making waves both as a pass catcher as well as on special teams. I think that has to bode well for his chances possibly of making this roster once the Lions start to cut things down.
Yeah, right there with you. Teslaw is obviously safe because of his draft status and everything else, but it's good to hear that he's making plays because he's going to be a little bit raw too, just coming from playing at Arkansas and then Hillsdale before that. But to your point, he's a big athlete, and you need to use that.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like, I would love if he became like the back shoulder option for this team eventually, because he's kind of got that stature, that size, and that skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And love it. Yeah, he's going to have to be a special teamer to make this roster. I think he's going to make it because I think he is a really, really good special teamer. Like, if Lovett and Khalil Dorsey are your gunners when it's really time to go, like December, January football, I'll love that. Combined with Jack Fox, you guys know I don't even really care about special teams that much, but that's a weapon in my opinion. Because if you can boot it 55 yards and you got two gunners that are playing with their hair on fire, you got guys like Grant Stewart. Yeah, go ahead and set it up with the defense, right?
I was gonna say that's having 3 phases of football like securely locked down, right? And I think that's what you need from your young guys. Like you said, whether it's Isaac Teslaw continuing to grow and develop as an outside receiver, like he played a lot of his snaps at the slot over there at Arkansas. Continue to develop him on the outside, but like you said, if he becomes a guy that you can at least maybe utilize in the red zone, or even becomes like a back shoulder type of guy that you can kind of, deploy in certain situations and utilize JMO or Saint as decoys to help get him open, that's a great place to be in. And then yeah, you always need special teams depth. Like you just do. And so to see Dominic Lovett at least turning heads in that respect is a good sign for a 7th round draft pick that, like I said, like going into training camp, I wasn't sure where he fit in the grand scheme of, these other receivers that are on the roster. So something to definitely keep an eye on as training camp kind of rolls on.
Yep. It's one of those guys that this roster is so good, you're going to have to be an ace special teamer. If you're a guy like Lovett that's not really looking to log snaps at receiver, you know what I mean? So there's a couple spots along the roster that are like that, but we know the Lions value special teams, and we know Dave Phipps, one of the best in the business, and I also just like hearing him talk. So I'm a little biased.
Absolutely. Yeah. So with that said, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for day 5 of training camp. Lions' first padded practice. They do practice again tomorrow on Saturday. It's the first day that fans get to be there in attendance. So for all the fans that are going out to that practice, I hope you guys enjoy yourself. Hopefully it's a good intensity practice, not too high intensity, but we'll kind of see what it's going to be like tomorrow. And then again, based on what that practice is like, we may drop another video recapping Saturday's practice well, because Morgan will actually be in attendance. So if you see Morgan, say hi.
Yeah, say what up. I'll be with my wife and daughter and my mother-in-law. So yeah, pull up, definitely. And we're going to be along the fence there because I think that's just better in my opinion. I don't like being on the bleachers and cooking, bro. I get too sweaty.
I feel you. I was going to say, depending on what the weather is going to be like, these last couple of days have been all over the place. But again, hopefully everyone that's attending practice tomorrow has a good time. Like always, if you guys are looking for more additional Lions content, you can always check out prideofdetroit.com, like I stated at the beginning of the video. Or if you want that extra layer of insight, please check out Pride of Detroit Direct. It's a great asset. Not only do you get the bonus content for training camp, you also get just a number of unique articles that get posted throughout the season and the off season, as well as if you were a big fan of First Bite, that's where First Bite went. We didn't just get rid of it. It just got moved over to Pride of Detroit Direct. So if you still want to check out Ryan and Jeremy doing that, you can always find it as a perk as a part of Pride of Detroit Direct. So with all that said, one last thing, if you do want to continue to support the YouTube channel, or if this is your first time coming across the YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell. That'll make it easier for you guys to find our content. It also helps out our channel immensely. But with all of that said, I'm Miko, he's Morgan. Thank you guys for taking the time to watch, and we'll see you guys in the next one.